the bathroom when he comes out. You should tell him to sit back there.
I think he will, but just in case, I will ask him to do, and I won't take off my mask until he comes through. Jenny, yeah. Sure. I will call on you. You and Clark will then.
They're going to go first.
Okay.
Either way, whatever.
Let me go.
Okay. Okay. Oh, yeah, he said, but I just want to hold until he does. So here we are. We gather this afternoon to remember and to celebrate the life of one who filled our world with her love, her goodness, her extraordinary spirit, and outstanding example. In humility and gratitude, we turn to the wisdom of our tradition for comfort, for guidance, and for understanding. Normally, at this point in the service, I would offer a psalm, the singing of a psalm, in memory and tribute of the deceased. But as I was thinking about Cindy, I thought of a quote from the prophets, from the prophet Isaiah. Ushafta mayim b'sason, mimayne ha'yeshua, that has been turned into a dance. It is an Israeli dance. And I thought, in her spirit and in her memory, and because she loved it so much, I might offer that song, and in the hope that some of you may have danced that dance with her. It's a famous Israeli dance from the pioneer days of the State of Israel. Ushaftem mayim b'sason mimayne ha'yeshua. Ushaftem mayim b'sason mimayne ha'yeshua. Mayim, 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 mayim. Hey, mayim b'sason. Mayim, 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 mayim. Hey, mayim b'sason. Hey, 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 hey. Mayim, 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 mayim. Mayim, mayim b'sason. Mayim, 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 mayim. Mayim b'sason. Ushaftem mayim b'sason. Mimayne ha'yeshua. Ushaftem mayim b'sason. Mimayne ha'yeshua. Adonai, what are we? That you have regard for us? What are we that you are mindful of us? We are like a breath. Our days are like a passing shadow. We come and go like grass, which in the morning shoots up renewed and in the evening fades and withers. You cause us to turn to dust, saying, Return, O mortal creatures. Would that we were wise, that we understood whither we are going. For when we die, we carry nothing away. Our glory does not accompany us. Mark the wholehearted, and behold the upright. They shall have peace. For those of you for whom the 23rd Psalm is familiar, I invite you to join with me in its recitation. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. As we were reflecting yesterday, I thought of these words that you all feel so powerfully, even with this short amount of time. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we will remember her. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we will remember her. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, in the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we will remember her. In the beginning of the year and when it fades, we will remember her. When we are weary and in need of strength, when we are lost and sick at heart, when we have joys we yearn to share, we will remember her. So long as we live, she too shall live, for she is now a part of us as we remember her. When I die, remember me with a smile and laughter. If thoughts of me provoke no love, only sadness and tears, I ask that I be soon forgotten. Give what's left of me away to children and old ones who wait to die. And if you must cry, cry for your brother or sister who walks in grief beside you. And when you need me, put your arms around anyone and give them what you need to give to me. You can love me most by letting love live within the circle of your arms, embracing the frightened ones. Love doesn't die. People do. So when all that's left of me is love, give me away. My dear Sam, Danny, Jen, dear Clark and Sharon, dear family, in the biblical story of Esther, the young woman who is destined to become the queen of Persia is beautiful, spirited, humble, unassuming, and an orphan who lives in the foster care of her cousin, Mordecai. While she ascended the throne using her secular Persian name, Esther, the story reveals that her given Hebrew name is Hadassah, which means myrtle or myrtle tree, and is a plant associated with hope. There are many theories as to the origin of the name Esther. One of the most persuasive is that it is a derivation of the it's a derivation of the name for the pagan Babylonian goddess of love and war, Ishtar, meaning star. As it may have multiple roots from other ancient languages, it may also carry the meanings of bride or queen. In Hebrew, the three-letter root of Esther, Samach Taf Resh, means hidden or concealed. I find all of these possibilities highly suggestive and engaging in thinking about Cynthia Rose, for as well as we knew her, and as much as we loved her, as we greatly admired her and shared her passions with her, there are parts of her life that are hidden, there are facets of her thought and personality that are mysterious, that we will never fully understand. I find it intriguing that one of those mysteries was her desire to be remembered as Cynthia Ann Hadassah Rose, a wish she shared with Clark when she was in the hospital. While we cannot know her motivation, there is no question in my mind that with her deep love of faith, her training at the Miracle Valley School, and her involvement at Messianic Tikvat congregation, she was well acquainted with the biblical book of Esther, the heroine's Hebrew name of Hadassah, and much of the discussion concerning the origin and meaning of the name Esther. In the end, she may quite simply just liked the name, its sound, and perhaps its biblical source. But all of the name's associations give us much to think about. Like the story of Esther Hadassah, Cindy's origins are somewhat mysterious. We know she was the firstborn child of Benjamin or Rubaiyat, or Benjamin Rubaiyat Lathaby, and Beatrice Ann Baxter. Her younger brother Jimmy arrived about a year later, but died tragically as a boy when a fall left him brain damaged, and he subsequently died in an operation meant to help him recover his mental capacity. She rarely talked about him or what happened to him. We know that her parents separated when she was about 2 years old, and that her mother disappeared, but we have no idea what happened to her. We also know that at some point, possibly in the aftermath of Jimmy's death, her father could no longer assume responsibility in whatever form that had been up until that point for her welfare or well-being. She became a ward of the state as an orphan, spent time at Oddfellows Orphanage in Pennsylvania, and went through a series of foster care experiences that did not work out until she was taken into the foster care of Helen Fry. Cindy had many stories about her experiences in foster care, and Helen certainly wasn't perfect, but they got along well enough for Helen to officially adopt her or to become her legal guardian. Helen remained in her life as Cindy married and had children. Helen would remember Sam and Danny with small gifts for their birthdays and at holiday time. Cindy also heard from her father from time to time. He was a somewhat colorful figure as a performer with the Ringling Brothers Barnum and Bailey Circus. Sam has a photograph of him standing upside down, supported by only his middle and index fingers on both hands. We don't know what happened to him or to his career, as he never really recovered from the loss of his marriage or, presumably, his son. There is a point at which, as in the story of Esther Hadassah, mystery yields to miracle, and the orphaned girl into a star. Cindy's experiences were many and varied, and seemed to lack any kind of cohesion or trajectory. She never finished high school, but did make her way to Arizona's Miracle Valley, which was known for the Big Tent Revival movement and the miracles of healing that took place in the meetings. After her exposure there, Cindy worked at Randalick's meat factory, where she was on the assembly line as part of the slaughter division. It was intense, brutal work, but Cindy could be tough as nails. She had to be. Her life had honed her survival skills, and miraculously, time after time, she had risen to the challenge. She became a professional painter when she acquired a job painting the sides of 18-wheelers. Her creativity and resourcefulness, her talent and can-do spirit, her resilience and self-reliance were extraordinary. She embodied the mystery and the miracle of the human spirit. Somehow, some way, she emerged from her earliest years and experiences growing up with great strength, and yet could extend a gentle touch, with steely determination and yet a joyful presence, with reliability and dependability, while being warm, infinitely loving, thoughtful, selfless, and kind. As Clark described, she was the North Star, the brightest light in her family's firmament, the constant, the beacon of inspiration and hope, the steady guide, the focus of attention for their safety, direction, and well-being. She was a mystery, a force of nature, a human and spiritual miracle. She had intended to enlist in the Navy, but while working at a nursing home where she also met Howard, someone told her that God did not want her to join the Navy. Cindy paid attention to such messages. The spiritual realm was very present for her and was certainly part of the secret of her strength and equanimity. She believed, and her faith not only sustained her, it included all of humanity in her love and care. She touched people with her genuineness, her honesty, her selfless, caring, radiant nature. She also touched them with her art and her artistry. She worked for Alice Baumel for a time and learned how to create and repair custom-made jewelry. She loved to paint, and with Howie would take wonderful weekends in the country when they would both spend hours at their easels, joyfully painting in nature and laughing and cooking and sharing and camping and thoroughly enjoying themselves and their time together. As niece Courtney has written about their weekends away, I always loved hearing about Howie and Cindy's camping trips and how they would sit themselves in the midst of nature with all of their creature comforts and draw and paint for days. I love that they would make time for just the two of them. They were kindred spirits, two peas in a pod. They marched to their own drummer, as they both were lovers of music and musically talented. A love and a talent they passed on to their children, Sam and Dan, although in a more heavy metal version. Howie's piano prowess was unusual, as the family gloried in his talent and could spend hours gathered around him, listening and singing and having the best time. Cindy had a beautiful voice and was part of the music ministry at her congregation. She also loved to come to services on the High Holy Days at Fairmont Temple. In final testament to her unusual spiritual awareness, the last time Clark saw her in the hospital, she was chanting the Shema over and over again. And when the rabbi from the Jewish Federation came to offer prayers for the end of one's life, Cindy sang with him, word for word, in a spiritual miracle of mystical proportions. She was attuned to all of God's creation, from the spiritual realm to our earthly residence, from the animal and natural kingdom to the everyday world of humanity. She felt a part of it all and comfortable in all of its aspects. When Cindy's great niece Layla was given the opportunity by her grandmother Sharon to choose any pictures she wanted from a whole collection that Sharon had acquired over the years, Layla went through them and chose only the ones that Cindy had done. She touched us with her expansive heart, her generous soul, and her luminous spirit. As Layla's mother, Laura, wrote, I have many loving memories of Cindy, her cooking, her laughing, and especially celebrating holidays when we were younger at their home. She was such a free spirit and was such an amazing artist. Many of her paintings are now being cherished by my daughter and are inspirational and comforting to her as she explores her own interest in drawing and painting. Cindy was the ultimate and irreplaceable nurturing mother to Sam and Dan and loving wife to Howie. When I think of Howie and Cindy together, giggling and laughing, it is always heartwarming. Their bond was inspirational to me and truly something special. They were such a beautiful family unit, and Cindy's absence will be deeply missed. That beautiful family unit began when Cindy was intrigued by Howard because she wanted to live in Israel. He joked that he wanted to marry an orphan so that he wouldn't have to deal with a mother-in-law. A year after they met, they were married. Cindy felt privileged to be the wife of her best friend. They never went to bed angry. They enjoyed camping and fishing, art and music. Anyone who knew them could not imagine them with anyone else, and found it a source of wonder that they had found each other. Everyone noted how they looked at each other with such love, and continued to do so for their whole life together. Most of all, they loved their children, Sam and Dan, both of whom are inordinately grateful for the very special, unique, and extraordinary mother they loved so deeply, and cannot fathom the enormity of their loss. Danny knows that he will never stop missing her, and Sam has been her best friend, her protector, and housemate. At this moment, it is hard to imagine his life without her. Sam played an important role in her care. During these last years. They were present for each other in important ways, as Sam helped her with the grocery shopping, took her out to lunch, and supported her in every possible way. Danny and Sam are feeling acutely at this time the loss of both their beloved parents, but are simultaneously aware that they bequeathed to their children a deep devotion to each other and to their family. Danny beautifully articulated how he only wanted to emulate his parents' relationship when he and Jenny married, and then their example as parents when his beautiful children, Abby and Adam, arrived. Sam and Dan fondly remember their childhood family adventures to Disney World and the Epcot Center, and they vividly remember outings to Randall Park Mall, where they would all hold hands, check out the computer store, have a bite to eat, and go home with inexpensive CDs or a magic tricks game. Sunday night dinners at Sharon and Clark's, Laura and Courtney's, were also an important part of growing up, as Clark and Howard exemplified the beauty and richness of close fraternal relationships. In fact, the two couples almost immediately forged an unusual bond of closeness and camaraderie when Cindy and Howie were married in Jeffersonville, Indiana, the day after Sharon and Clark were married in Cleveland. Clark and Howie were best men for each other, and the two couples became wonderful friends as well as family, as they shared the challenges and joys of raising children, setting up households, working, playing, and experiencing so much of life together. They were all wonderfully adept at relationships, with Cindy a true natural. She had hundreds of friends. As Dan described, people who didn't know her seemed to gravitate to her. She was the original Earth Mother, a nurturing, encouraging, supportive, and loving force who believed in us, saw the good in us, and inspired us to be our best selves, and to follow her example as she danced and sang and laughed and mischievously enjoyed and adventurously and joyfully believed her way through this life that she loved and in which she exulted. Her love of Israeli dancing was a legendary feature of the Rose family, as she would gather everyone in the kitchen on Sunday nights and lead with exuberance. As Courtney shared, I remember Cindy singing with Howie at our piano during any occasion. I also love Cindy's enthusiasm for Israeli dancing. Once when I was visiting, she showed us some moves in her living room, and I even had the chance to join one of her classes for an evening. I remember the Passover dinners we would attend at her home and the food she would cook. I remember her making a special effort to have me meet one of her friends who loved to knit and had farm animals, knowing that I loved those things. Whenever I came to town, she would make an effort to say hello or go on an adventure with us, berry picking and zoo visits. Cindy believed that she had a psychic connection with me, and would often try to read my mind or environment, like the color of our walls, during family gatherings or over the phone. She never missed sending me a St. Patrick's birthday card with lots of sparkly confetti, and she never missed sending Hanukkah cards, gelt, and pictures of Abby and Adam. Courtney's husband, Matt, remembers her as friendly, thoughtful, welcoming, with his family into her family. She had a special correspondence with Matt's grandmother. There was a spiritual quality to everything Cindy did and in every relationship she had. It was what motivated her to go to Israel with Howie and their young family, and inspired in her a lifelong support of the Israel Defense Forces and its American arm, the Friends of the IDF. Howie served in the Israeli military and was honorably discharged when he had to be hospitalized for pneumonia. Cindy's experience in Israel became an indelible part of her spiritual life and awareness. She was a pan-spiritual being. Her faith was inclusive and eclectic. I even imagine that her affection for the name Hadassah and its association with Esther may have been related to the pagan roots of that name, hearkening to a pagan past from which we are all descended. That is the kind of understanding that would resonate with her, as did her family. Sam remembers caring for her and even saving her life on more than one occasion. Dan and Jenny brought her the eternal gift of grandchildren. Abby remembers her as a sweet and caring and fun person who made Abby smile. She was generous, kind, and always loving. Adam misses her in his heart and loves her with all his heart. They both think of her as happy, as very special, as a lover of animals and especially cats. She was, in fact, a cat whisperer, but then she was a people whisperer as well. For Jenny, she was a reassuring presence who made her feel that everything would be okay. Sometimes Cindy made it okay, and sometimes their shared breakfasts, her generosity of heart and spirit, her selfless approach, her infectious smile, her luminous personality just gave Jenny the confidence she needed to persevere and go forward. She was like a sabra, tough on the outside and sweet as sugar on the inside. But even she knew when her strength and her faith could sustain her body no longer. She acknowledged how she would miss her loved ones, her dancing, their dinners and joyful gatherings. Sam and Dan are already missing so much about her and will continue to do so. But she led us at the end. She knew there was no miracle waiting for her, and she wanted to leave on her own terms. She knew that we could carry on without her, even while we will continue to be guided, supported, and inspired by every minute she joyously shared with us. She was ready to meet Howie. She left a sacred legacy of doing, of believing, of laughing, and loving. She was a true Esther Hadassah, a queen of our hearts, a noble guardian of our highest aspirations, the embodiment of hope and belief in something beyond ourselves. She taught us, with every fiber of her being, with every instinct of her sweet soul, to the last moments of her life, what it means to be a human being. Zichrona livracha. May the memory of Cynthia, Anne, Hadassah, Rose be always for blessing. And let us say, Amen. It is a fearful thing to love what death can touch. A fearful thing to love, hope, dream, to be. To be and oh, to lose, a thing for fools this, and a holy thing to love. For your life has lived in me, your laugh once lifted me, your word was gift to me. To remember this brings painful joy. 'Tis a human thing, love, a holy thing, to love what death has touched. I call now on Jenny and then on Clark to share their thoughts with us.
Our mother, grandma, aunt, family, and friend to so many was a kind and selfless person who had a heart of gold. Her smile was infectious. She truly was the life of the party. She was very artistic. She loved to paint and draw and dance and make jewelry. And I loved receiving her works of art. I know I will miss our times together, the holidays, the birthdays, and our Monday night visits. I will miss her quick wit and beaming personality, her warm hugs, and her empathetic demeanor. We will all have something to remember about Cindy that will randomly make us smile. It made her day just to see everyone happy. A real gem has left a legacy for all of us to remember. We love you.
Abby and Adam, we're almost done. You've been so wonderful, so patient. Dearest Sammy, Dan, Jenny, Abby, and Adam, I want to share with you how your Uncle Clark and your Aunt Sharon felt about Cindy. Your precious mom and grandma was indeed a force of nature. Growing up, she endured much heartache, but she never let any challenge, any obstacle, any setback ever get the best of her. Cindy was physically strong, but more importantly, she was spiritually strong. Her faith in God never wavered. Indeed, Cindy believed with all her heart, with all her mind, and with all her strength. And she expressed her deep faith through her fierce and abiding love for Howie and each and every one of you. Cindy and I both love this famous quote from the book, The Little Prince. The Little Prince says, "And now here is my secret, a very simple secret. It is only with the heart that one can see rightly. What is essential is invisible to the eye." Cindy saw with the heart. Cindy lived through her heart. Cindy loved from her heart. And I know she will continue to be in all of our hearts. Amen.
Thank you for those beautiful tributes to a very special, unusual person. Oh God, you give us loved ones and make them the strength of our life, the light of our eyes. They depart and leave us bereft on a lonely way, but you are the living fountain from which our healing flows. To you the stricken look for comfort and the sorrow laden for consolation. Oh God, we see life as through windows that open on eternity. We see that love endures, and the soul endures as you, O God, endure forever. We see that the years are more than grass that withers, more than flowers that fade. They weave a timeless pattern in a world that is the dwelling place of your love and glory. Please rise. El male rachamim shochen bamromim hametzei menucha nechona tachat kanfei hashchina im kedoshim utehorim kizorakia Mazirim et nishmat Hadassah bat Binyamin shalcha leolama bal harachamim yastirev v'set agnav Leolamim, Vitru, Chaim, et Nishmata, Adonai hu nachalata, v'tanuach, v'shalom, al mishkava v'nomar Amen. Compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Cynthia Ann Rose, who has entered eternity. O God of mercy, let her find refuge in the shadow of your wings, and let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God is her inheritance. May she rest in peace. And let us say, Amen.
Identify, we'll bring your coats to you, just identify. Okay? Oh, this has to be yours, buddy. Gray one? Gray, Dan? Sorry, I got my gun. Okay. Sure. Okay, what I would like you to do is you'll go up this aisle to the right. You're going out that door. We'll be right with you. Awesome. Take care.
we're all set. Yeah,